Yeah. Well, cool, man. I'm looking forward to getting into your work and how we got to this point. And to begin that, I want to know, 4 years ago, we were trying to figure out this pandemic. How are we going to
Right.
get through it? The ramifications, what's going to happen? How did you ultimately survive that time period? And how did it change the way that you do work now?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, I was actually working as a W-2 employee in a turnaround situation. For us, that particular business actually was thriving because it was in the cargo handling arena, and so we were building cargo handling systems that were used in cargo aircraft. So actually, for that business, there's a lot of cargo that is moved in passenger airplanes, and so when they're not flying, the cargo obviously takes a tick up. But what it taught me during that situation is to kind of always have a backup plan, always have a plan because that came out of nowhere and we had no anticipation. So a lot of what I do today as a fractional CFO is trying to put backup plans and what ifs scenarios in all the clients that I have.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis here in 2024. And to do
Gotcha.
that, let's go to career day at an elementary school, third graders, and one of them says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Yep.
answer them?
So I'm a fractional CFO, which is something that's a fairly emerging, I guess, a new emerging market. But for me, I'm a CFO to small businesses less than $30 million who have either hit a ceiling, who have lost control, or really just kind of lost their way. And they don't need a full-time CFO with corporate experience, uh, but they can afford to use the experience. And so they hire me on a fractional or part-time basis, and they get a full-time seasoned CFO for a fraction of the cost.
Okay. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Yeah, so in the third grade, probably wanted to be a basketball player, but I was blessed to know that since I was about 12 or 13, that I wanted to go in business. But for me, I didn't know what business that would be. Was it entrepreneurship, small, large business? I really had no clue. So I spent my 20s and first part of my 30s figuring that out. Realized I just truly love small business. So I spent a good 15 years in the corporate world building up a tool set, a skill set that ultimately allowed me to leave and start Bracket today, and where I can really focus all my efforts on the small business.
So take me back to where you were born and raised and how you got these seeds of getting into business. How were those planted to evolve into who you are today?
Yeah, so born and raised in Eastern North Carolina. My dad actually started his first business when I was about 13 or 14. And I was intimately involved in seeing that from the infant stages all the way to somewhat of a success. And so he put me through the ringer, so I really had to start at the bottom. But what it did is it taught me the playbook. It taught me what success looked like, and I literally held every position in the business. Little did I know, I would take that into the corporate arena and better apply that to being a turnaround expert. And so, once I learned the playbook, the inputs, the outputs of the business, I could apply that and again turn these companies around that were struggling from an on-time delivery, profit, growth, whatever it may be. So it was those early stages, that early experience that really put me where I am today. The love of business, it was a God given love. Really, it's only way to explain it. I love numbers, accounting, I love strategy, and it's just something that's kind of in my DNA.
So, we look at business like we do sport. All these businesses rise up and the CEOs become kind of folklore heroes. What business model exists out there that you admire the most?
So it's one that I had in a corporate arena. It was for a publicly traded company, but they really were insanely disciplined on value creation through price, cost management, and new business. And they basically said if you were not working on those three things, you might as well be playing golf. And so it taught me so much about strategy because it was an insanely disciplined laser focus on those three things of value generation. Those are truly the things that do create value. And so they taught me to try to gain the intellectual property around a product, around a service, around a way that you do things, and it allows you to really segregate yourself in the market. And so for me, that discipline exposure around those three value drivers is really what set me up, I think, for success for what I do today.
So, who's been a hero for you in your life?
A hero, it's a good question. You know, early on in my early 20s, I had a doctor who reached out to me and really kind of bankrolled a real estate investment firm for me. He gave me my first taste of entrepreneurship. So without him, that wasn't a success. It was some struggle, but those struggles taught me things. So if it weren't for him giving me that opportunity, then I probably wouldn't have some of the scars and stuff I have today, which really has made me a better businessman. So I would say that he would probably be one of my heroes.
So in the realm of business, if you can meet one business leader that exists on the planet that you would spend some time with them and maybe pick their brain, who would it be?
Yeah. So early on, Marcus Lemonis was somewhat of a guy who I said I always wanted to be. In my mind, I wanted to be an entrepreneur that owned a variety of small businesses. And so when The Profit came out, I watched every episode and I always told everyone I would love to be Marcus Lemonis. And so I'd say that he would be one of the top guys I'd like to meet.
And he's highly driven, obviously, very successful. What is that drive for you? What gets you up every day? What motivates you to do the best that you can do and to also evolve as a human being?
Yeah. So again, some of that God given, it's just in me. I wake up every day super excited and driven. Uh, but I don't know. It's from what my wife and what my peers say. Man, you're just insanely driven, or you're insanely disciplined. I don't know. I mean, it's just something that's inside of me. So I wake up every day ready to go. I also love what I do. I love helping small businesses, and so those aha moments, those wins that I see these entrepreneurs get, it just makes me every day get up and keep wanting to do it more and more and more. And so I recognize that I have a talent that the market needs. And so I don't want to let my clients down. So I just get up every day, learn, drive, and keep fighting.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice. That's a good question. Really, just not to accept failure. Failure is not final. And early in my career, particularly when I first got my opportunity to be a leader, I failed miserably. And it would have been easy to tuck my tail and just say, you know what, I can't do this. But just to understand that failure is not final. Um, I'm a big Dave Ramsey guy, and Dave Ramsey's always said, if you've ever gotten to point A and you've stumbled backwards, you can always get back to point A because you've done it before. And so that's been one of the key aspects. I've always said, hey, if I'm falling backwards, I've once been there, so I can get back.
So in all of the business ventures and adventures you've been through, what was one of them or a time period where you grew the most?
I'll go back to the real estate investment one. So that was my first launch into entrepreneurship. And we found success relatively quickly, but as quickly as we succeeded, we failed. And so for me, that really taught me to try to understand. I did not understand cash flow. I did not understand really looking into the future and forward-looking indicators. And I literally almost lost everything I had built. And so that was one of the biggest lessons I've learned. And I actually had another one too. My second turnaround opportunity with a company. Individual had hired me. Their on-time delivery was struggling. They were a profitable company, but they couldn't grow because they couldn't get product out the door in time. And so I had come in. I was fairly young, and the owner of the business came to me one day and said, "You realize that you are succeeding in turning around the metrics, but you're destroying the team." And I was like, "There's no way. I'm not that guy. I'm a leader." And then I reflected and I looked back and I was like, holy crap, I have absolutely destroyed this team. And so I actually had to go apologize to him and say, listen, I realize I've come in like a bull in a china shop. I've run a bunch of you guys over, and that's not cool, right? And so I had to really back up and change the way I was operating. So, those are two big learning lessons for me that really, put me on the path I'm on today.
So of everything that you've accomplished and done, what are you the proudest of?
On the professional side, starting this company. So this was started back in 2008 with an idea with a college buddy of mine, and it just didn't go anywhere. And so, I set out for 15 years to try to figure out a different manner. And so, relaunching this company, adding the fractional CFO stuff and the strategy, is something I'm super proud of. And then on the personal side, raising four boys, and having a good marriage is also positive.
So if you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained, what advice would you give that young version of you?
Enjoy your 20s.
Yeah.
Enjoy your 20s. I worked my 20s away and didn't enjoy it. And so that would be the number one thing.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your
Yep.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. I think I'm someone very determined. I think again very driven, but also sometimes probably lack the confidence. If it weren't for my wife kind of being that guiding light, and a lot of times that um, uh, boost of morale, I would a lot of times probably tend to quit, but she's always been there and helps me out tremendously. So again, I think on the outside I look like I'm fairly driven and have it together, but on the inside I really question myself a lot.
So if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where can they go?
They can go to my website, bracketmgmt.com, and then I'm on all the socials, probably most active on LinkedIn.
Okay. Stewart Ervin, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Keep doing the great work, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care.